can you remind me if you'll be so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? The purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm Lori LeBay, the host and founder of Alzheimer's Speaks. For those of you who are new to our show, I'm just going to give you a little background on Alzheimer's Speaks and myself. My mom had dementia for 30 years, and so more than half of my life, I've been learning how to live gracefully with this disease, and I created Alzheimer's Speaks back in 2009. And bottom line, we're an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort worldwide. We believe that by joining forces and sharing knowledge and having everyday conversation about what is life really like with dementia, that we're going to be able to remove the stigmas attached to memory loss and not only help those diagnosed, but those caring for them as well, and help them continue to live purposeful and engaged lives. At our core, Alzheimer's Speaks believes that collaboration is the only way we're going to win this battle against dementia. And I know it's working thanks to all of you. You see, your likes, your clicks, your share got us named the #1 influencer online regarding Alzheimer's, according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz. So I would just really encourage you to continue to push out to your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn colleagues, your Pinterest peeps, your Google gang, your Twitter tribes, because the more information we have out into the world about dementia and caregiving, the easier it's going to be for someone to grab it when they're in need. And there are so many families struggling that don't even know what they're dealing with. Others are in denial, and some just aren't ready to reach out. But the more normal and comfortable we can have this conversation be, the easier it's going to be for them to get the information when they're in need. I also like to let our listeners know that, you could be our next guest on the show. Here at Alzheimer's Speaks, we believe in giving everyone a voice, a platform. So we interview people with dementia. We interview families who are on this journey or who have been on this journey. We talk to businesses that have products, services, or tools that can improve dementia care. We talk to advocates. We've had, researchers on. We've had movie actors. We've had film directors. We've had authors. It takes all of us to really lift and change our culture. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. Just go to our main website, which is alzheimersspeaks.com. That's got 2 S's in the middle, alzheimersspeaks.com, and there's a big contact button where you can reach out to me there. Today's show, I'm really excited. Music is, I think, just so special to all of us in the world, and that doesn't change when a person has dementia. And so today we're going to talk to Rachelle Norman, and her vision is to see all people with dementia sharing meaningful music experiences with their loved ones until the very end of life. She has been a board-certified music therapist since 2004, and she runs a private music therapy practice in Kansas City, where her and her team serve older adults in senior living and also in hospice situations. She is also on the music therapy faculty for St. Mary of the Woods College and is in high demand as a consultant and speaker for elder care organizations locally and across the country. So we're so lucky to have Rachelle with us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm very excited to have you on the show. I think music is just so important to just about everybody's life, and I think it's something that is underplayed and undernoticed in terms of the impact that it has. So, why don't we start out talking about why is music so important for people with dementia?
Sure. Well, I like to explain the importance of music for older adults in terms of 3 B's: brain, background, and being together. Now, we know from brain studies now that the brain is very much activated. All different parts of the brain are activated when people are listening to music and engaging in music. And when you're talking about people with dementia, they have a neurological impairment. You know, the neurological functioning is declining. And so the more things that you have that can help to make connections over the damaged parts of the brain, the better kinds of interactions and responses that somebody with dementia is going to be able to engage in. So music is one of those things we've known for centuries that can really touch somebody at the deepest part of their soul. But now that we have this technology to see what's happening in the brain, we know a lot more about why it is so effective for people who have dementia.
Okay, wonderful. What exactly does a music therapist do, and what does a music therapy session look like for somebody with dementia?
Okay, that's actually where the other 2 B's come in, is the background and the being together. Music is so important to people because it connects us to our past and it connects us to the people around us. So what music therapists are really skilled at doing is helping to figure out what kinds of music experiences are going to help a person with dementia at various stages of dementia and various things that might be going on in terms of agitation or confusion or delusions or hallucinations, all those really difficult symptoms that might be happening. Music therapists are really skilled at helping to figure out music experiences that will cut through that and get to the person behind all of that disease stuff going on. And so in a music therapy session, what we spend a lot of our time doing is trying to connect to that person on a musical level. They might be able to tell me what kind of songs they like, or their families might be able to tell me what kind of songs they like, or they might not. And we might improvise, or sometimes I'll play my guitar and sing with somebody and imitate the sounds that they're making or the movements that they're making to create something that's musical. And in that way, you're connecting with somebody on a very deep level, even if there's some really serious clinical problems happening with that person because of their disease process.
Okay, great. Is a music therapy session that different for somebody with dementia versus maybe something else that they're afflicted with?
Yeah, music therapists are trained to work with people of all ages and all different kinds of health needs and education needs. And so we have a lot of musical tools at our disposal, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. But they're all about being in the music with the other person. In music therapy, part of what we're trained to do as clinicians is to determine goals for what the sessions are going to be about, a treatment plan. So if you're working with a child in the school system, then your goals are probably going to have to do with improving this behavior or improving this, helping them to improve over the long term so that they can have a better time in school, or to have a stronger ability to use their body and things like that. Well, when we're working with people who have dementia, we're wanting to help maintain some of what they have. We're wanting to help maintain the social relationships and the good, whatever is good is left, the good mm-hmm. feelings, the physical abilities that they have, that spiritual core of themselves that makes them who they are as a person. And so even as things decline over time. So that changes the sessions a little bit because they can be a lot more music focused and very much focused in the present moment and meeting somebody where they are in the music.
Okay, great. Can you tell us a little bit about how music therapy fits together with other music programs. Like we hear a lot about music and memory, and maybe you can tell people a little bit about that and where people with dementia, really listen with music on an iPod or maybe a CD versus an actual therapy session. Because I think there's
Sure.
a lot of controversy over that and misunderstanding with that.
Yeah. I wouldn't say controversy so much as confusion. And I say that about my colleagues in music therapy as well as people who are totally outside the world of music therapy. Music and Memory, just to explain that real quick, is a program, a not-for-profit organization that was started by Dan Cohen. He's executive director. That is meant to get personalized playlists into the hands of people with dementia. So a digital playlist of songs that are meaningful to individual people just on a biographical level, not just you were alive in the 50s, so let's put some Elvis on there, but you had Love Me Tender played at your wedding, so we need to make sure that song's on your playlist. And so that has become this incredible movement to get personalized music into the hands of people with dementia and their caregivers. What's happening is that people are listening to the music they love, and that music is becoming a way for them to connect with their caregivers, whether those are family members, friends, or the caregivers who work in a senior living facility where they're living or a memory care unit. And it's also becoming a way for people with dementia to connect with others around them, their peers, people maybe who aren't caring for them directly, but who are in their world in one way or another. And the cool thing about Music and Memory is that it's kind of fulfilling all of my dreams as a music therapist for getting such a powerful tool into the hands of lots of people who are able to then use that tool in their caregiving relationships. So music therapy is meant to be about a clinical relationship. It's a much deeper process. We should be working, a music therapist should be working with people at a pretty deep level of care. And then music therapists can also serve as a resource to help nursing communities or senior living communities to put programs like Music and Memory into place. We can be a resource to help families know how to use the resources they have. So if they have a boombox and a stack of CDs, what are some ideas for how you can integrate this into the routine of your day? What kind of music can you play when you are getting somebody out of bed, and when you're trying to help them go to sleep at night, and when you're trying to help them calm down when they're feeling, a little anxious and agitated, or maybe to help them perk up if they need to find the motivation to get out of their chair and get in the car to go to the doctor's office. And so music therapists can really be there to help make some of those connections and help teach some of those skills that come very naturally to us. But, there are only 6,000 music therapists in the entire United States. And so, and I don't know the number. Maybe you know the number off the top of your head, Lori, how many people there are who have dementia.
Way too many, and
way too many.
It's over 5 million, but yet it's severely underdiagnosed. So I don't even like throwing those numbers out, because there's so many people that aren't diagnosed or that have a diagnosis that haven't been told by their doctor that they even have this disease. So it's kind of strange to not have a better handle of numbers, but we really don't have a good handle because there's so much stigma attached to the disease. A lot of people don't come forward, and it mimics a lot of other things, especially in the beginning. People think it's depression or midlife crisis, or there's just so many different phases. So, way too many for just 6,000 music therapists to be able to meet the need.
Right.
So
there is no way that there is going to be a music therapist working with every single person who has dementia. So I'm on a mission to share this message and to give people these skills that I know from my clinical work can be so helpful and beautiful. And so, they can create such wonderful relationships and interactions that are meaningful and that can be cherished for years and years to come after that person is gone. And I've seen these moments happen. I've been there when daughters have connected with mothers and husbands have connected with wives through music. And so I want to see that happening more, which is why, I get on things like this, like your podcast here, because I think it's important to get this message out there that bringing music into your relationship is a way that can make your relationship better now, and that can be something that you can hold on to in the future.
Well, and that's really true, because I've had both music therapists and just musicians interact with my mom, and then I have no voice and I have no talent regarding music, but I like music, so I can put the CD on and I can
Yeah.
I can dance and I can be silly and things like that with her. But I have several clips on my YouTube channel that show the power of the interaction. And, my mom passed away. She had dementia for 30 years, for those listeners that didn't know. And she passed away 2 years ago. But I can be having a really bad day, and all I have to do is go watch one of those. And it just puts a smile on my face, because she was so joyful, even though she wasn't the mom I knew when I was younger, and she couldn't sing all of the words. Her joy just jumps out and just grabs my heart and says, "It's going to all be okay, Laura. It's all going to be okay,
Right.
whatever's going on in your life right now." And she just, those moments are really powerful. And I can't tell you how many times I've shared them at conferences or when I'm speaking, and the oohs and the ahs that just come out of the crowd, just watching someone engage and being joyful when before they probably thought, that person really is more of a shell of a body. They really can't interact. And, it really throws that whole myth right in the trash can when they see that interaction. Right. So I can imagine your job must feel very rewarding to be able to have the talent to be able to make connections on that level that's so universal. But my understanding too is that, with your skill set, one of the big differences between, just a musician playing or a family member playing songs is you can really change a person's mood by tune and rhythm. If it's going to sleep or waking up or calming down. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the big difference with music therapists is that we have the musical skills and the clinical skills to really be able to shape a music experience or a musical interaction and guide that in a way where we're meeting the client, the person with dementia, where they are, and reaching out to them through the music, being with them, and if they need safety to calm down, then we can help with that through the music. For people who have dementia and who are losing a lot of their higher level cognitive functioning, we know, again, from brain studies that lower level of the brain, the limbic system, the emotional part of the brain, music is very active there. So music and emotions and memory are very closely tied. And so I'm sure everybody listening to this has had an experience where somebody is very afraid or they're very upset, and it doesn't matter what you say, but they're not calming down, right? Music takes out the confusion of the words and trying to interpret the words and says, I see you, I hear you, I can help you, right? So as music therapists, we have a deeper level of musical and clinical experience to be able to help with situations like that.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this question, because what works for one person, does it work for most people, or is it something that really has to be specialized to each individual?
Music therapy is very special. I mean, it's specialized, individualized, for sure. There are some general principles to follow that we teach, and then there's an exception to every rule. I mean, what's the saying? If you've met one person with dementia, then you've met one person with dementia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's that way when it comes to music. I find that family members and close caregivers, their instincts are usually pretty good about what's working and what's not working. And maybe sometimes caregivers need a little bit of help with following those instincts to bring music into their caregiving relationship. The hard situations, the most difficult ones, are when you have somebody in a skilled facility who maybe doesn't have any relatives, maybe they have a state-appointed guardian, and the caregivers don't know them very well and they can't speak for themselves. Those are the folks that it's really hard to say, okay, just play, Frank Sinatra or just play gospel music, because then you're just kind of shooting in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
As far as things that tend to be helpful with a lot of people, some of the general principles that we can follow is that music that is preferred by that person and music that is going to be familiar to them tend to be the ones that light them up the easiest.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of familiarity, the music that was popular in their cultural situation when they were a young adult, that's a pretty common thing I hear, and it's supported by the research and by clinical experience that music that was popular when somebody was like in their teens and 20s tends to be something that can light that spark. And then also music that is preferred. So I don't know. I mean, when I was in my late teens, I was listening to a lot of Broadway musicals. And when I was in my 20s, I was listening to a lot of Sinatra because I like working with older adults. And so even though I was in high school and in college in the 90s, the popular music of the 90s isn't my preferred music. So sometimes people have very broad tastes, and it takes a little bit of digging to figure out what they are. And sometimes people have very specific tastes. So that stuff kind of ranges a little bit.
Okay.
Music therapists can be helpful in kind of pointing people in the right direction as to what kind of music to try.
Okay. This is going to sound really probably very strange, but it's just I keep hearing this little voice in my head to ask this question. I do a lot with dementia-friendly communities. Is there some type of music that could be used, let's say in an emergency situation, maybe where someone is agitated or lost, and could help calm, let's say, the majority of the population down? And I know what works for one might not work for another, but I'm just wondering if something like that in the background could help, a police officer or an EMT or whatever the situation might be, if they just had that on their phone to be able to play in the background.
Oh, yeah. That's a great question. I don't think I've ever considered that before. I would have two ideas with that. One is that I would shoot for that familiar music.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably go with some real like moderate, in America, I would go with like some Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby type.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty familiar now, in the senior living communities I go to, my clients range from their 50s all the way up to past 100. And that stuff is in the sweet spot right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty familiar. So playing some of that, I would play not the really slow stuff, but the easy kind of moderate rhythm. That's one idea. The other principle that we have in music therapy is something called the ISO principle. This is a very old idea. What this principle says is that you match somebody where they are and then gradually bring the tempo, the level down.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is very agitated, you might start with music that's a little bit more upbeat, up tempo, and then gradually slow the music down until eventually you're playing Let Me Call You Sweetheart level, kind of more lullaby-like. And that can help on a physiological level. That can help somebody to relax without even knowing what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about music in a disaster kind of situation is that music can be a really quick and easy way to establish rapport with somebody. Music has always been a cultural signifier, like for human cultures, basically forever. And so if you're playing music that's familiar to that other person, it's a way of saying, I'm safe. I'm a familiar person. I know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the double-edged sword, the catch-22 to that is that if you pick the wrong thing, then it could go off the rails. So you kind of need to have a backup plan. But yeah, I would say offering mid-tempo music, maybe slowing it down as you go along, something that would be familiar to that generation, I think could help to set a tone of this is okay, this is safe, this is a relaxed place, it will be okay.
Okay. Yeah, I just, it just makes you wonder if something like that could help in a confrontational or scary situation. I know with my mom, you were rattling off tunes, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can just picture her singing that one. Oh yeah, I can, and she would just just hop right in with that. And I think it's important, like you said, you got to pick the right tunes, or you could be in trouble because certain songs could trigger maybe not happy emotions. Maybe they've lost the love of their life, and that triggers some anger or something too, or grave sadness. So, it is a trial and error type thing. But I just, like I said, I thought, well, that might be kind of an interesting concept for people to test out and just see. And it is typically kind of generational in terms of what types of music people lean towards too. And again,
right.
When we're making those assumptions, we're definitely pigeonholing. And again, it is a trial and error. It's not going to work for everybody. So you have to know that, and you have to, I would imagine, be prepared to change things up fairly quickly and really be watching some of those nonverbals in terms of a person's comfort level. Do you find that you really, when you're communicating with someone, that you're more in tune to their nonverbals in terms of watching reactions and things?
Yeah, I know I am, and I think sometimes it's hard for me to tell whether that's something I learned or if it's something that came naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Part of how I see all of my interactions as a music therapist is that I see the music in how we interact. I see the rhythm in how people are moving and how people are speaking and making sounds, and so I'm always thinking about how is this music and how do I get into the music with this person.
Mm-hmm.
But for all of us, yes, paying attention to the nonverbal music, kind of listening between the lines of what people are saying. Maybe you could think of listening to the rhythm of what they say, or listening to the chords underneath the words that they're saying can help you to understand better where somebody is coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that whole nonverbal piece is so critical and something that we kind of take for granted in a lot of ways. And, I think it's something that comes naturally to us, but we don't really even know that we're doing it. But when you're dealing with somebody with dementia, it becomes so much more critical. One of the things they always talk about is, when they're looking or when they're communicating, to be able to see you, because so many of them say, well, we read lips. We didn't know we read lips until we were in this situation, and now we know it's so much more helpful if we can see somebody's face and read their lips when they're talking. So it's a very interesting process in terms of trying to sort out how do we communicate and what's important to us at which times, as a whole there. If our listeners are interested in connecting with you, where exactly are you located?
My company is located in Kansas City, and so people who are interested specifically in music therapy services, we see people all over the Kansas City metro. I'm also connected with music therapists across the country. I have some coaching programs for music therapists who work with older adults specifically, and I supervise other music therapists to help them improve their work. All the information on that is available on my website, which is soundscapingsource.com.
Soundscaping
The other place,
Source. Mm-hmm.
soundscapingsource.com.
Okay.
Yep. The other place that people can look if they want to find a music therapist in their area is to go to the American Music Therapy Association website. That's musictherapy.org. And I think it's right on the left-hand side of the screen. There's a place to click Find a Music Therapist. You can type in, your zip code or your city and state, and it will connect you with the members of AMTA who are in the area.
Okay.
So we're a little bit spread out, and depending on where you are, you may or may not have a music therapist right there available for an appointment tomorrow. But there are enough music therapists around that you'll be able to find somebody to help answer your questions and bring you some music.
Okay, great. Now, for yourself, I know that you do some speaking, and if people are interested in having you come to their conference or maybe do some training with their staff, what could they expect in terms of, time frame and so forth and topics?
Okay. Well, I do a lot of different things, everything from a 1 hour in service on just getting your feet wet on using music and caregiving, up to 3 and 5 hour courses on using music in dementia care. I've done those with elder care workers and just family members coming from all different kinds of backgrounds. And so we do some music making just to get people comfortable with using their voices and talking about music and moving to music. Sometimes we adults have to let down our boundaries a little bit to be able to be playful with music. So we do a little bit of that. And then we talk a lot about why music is so important and how to start, easy ways to start bringing music into the caregiving relationship. And all of that is tailored according to the audience and what kind of people you're working with. It's going to be very different for somebody who is caring for a loved one in early stages of Alzheimer's versus people who are working with those who have late onset, late stages dementia and hospice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a very big difference, I think, on that. And yet powerful at either spectrum, either end of the spectrum there. It doesn't diminish, it just changes, what it looks like, and outcomes change, expectations change in terms of type of engagement. And but yet still very powerful and strong with that. So do you have some tips for how care partners can use music with their own loved ones?
Oh, do I have tips? Yes, I have tips. Well, one tip that came to mind earlier when you were downplaying your own vocal skills, Lori, is that none of us should be afraid of our voices. We should all be.
Oh, you haven't heard mine, girl.
Oh, see, but it doesn't matter because your loved ones love you, and hearing your voice is always better than hearing my voice, even though, I'm a trained vocalist, music therapist, whatever. So I'm always continuously encouraging people to sing. Even if you don't know somebody, this is another thing like with that disaster or crisis situation kind of thing that we're talking about. Singing for somebody can be even more effective than pushing play on a CD player or an iPod or something. Because when we're singing with somebody, we're definitely sending a strong signal that we're a safe person, right? Because who sings to you? It's your mother. It's your daughter. It's people who are very close to you. And so that's a way of communicating, I'm safe. I'm here to help you. You don't have to be afraid of me. And so that's one tip I have is feel free to sing and don't criticize your own voice because it's beautiful because you're sharing it as part of your relationship. And that's what makes it beautiful.
Well, one of the things I always say about this disease is that dementia helped me learn to play again. and not take myself so seriously. And so I could sing, I could dance, even though I knew I wasn't good at it. It was just, Mom wasn't so good at it anymore either. But
Right.
but we sure had a good time, and we were happy together and joyful, and made some powerful moments. But it's really hard to let go of that. Oh my gosh, I really bite at this. I'm gonna be judged by this. And it took me a while, and there's still moments where, I will mouth versus sing, in public and stuff. But when I was with my mom, I pretty much let myself go, because I always say that, she was the one place I could go where I didn't have to worry about being judged, because her ego had left the room, and she didn't really care.
Yeah.
She was just really who she was at her core. And none of that kind of stuff mattered to her. But she did teach me how to be more playful and less, I guess, egotistical, because that's really what it comes down to. When you're worried about things like that, and in the big picture, that doesn't matter. It just the disease teaches you to let that stuff go over time. And for most of us, it doesn't happen right away, because it's drilled into our head, how we're supposed to look and act and even feel.
Maybe that's really where the beauty is with music and caring for somebody who has dementia, is that you do find beauty and you joy and playfulness. And, when you're caring for somebody who's got such a serious disease, it's really easy just to be serious all the time, and got to do these pills and do this thing, and got to lock the doors, and got to find a place for them to live, and how am I going to pay for it, and got a doctor's appointment, it all adds, it all adds up for the caregivers and for that person who has dementia. And music is something that kind of makes us slow down and be in the moment, to be a little bit playful. And there's some kinds of music, that you just can't. I mean, you can probably think of some of these songs that when it comes on, you can't help but stop whatever you're doing and shake your booty a little bit, So, and those are good, because we're people, we're humans, and what's the point of living if we're not enjoying our humanity together?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and we hide that side of us an awful lot, which is really too bad, because that's our authentic self, and so I think music gives us that ability to share and open up and just accept one another, for who we are, and it's a common denominator too. That sense of joy or silliness, when it occurs, and there's those hit songs that just play in your head over and over and over, and everybody is sending them to everyone, even to say, I think of, the happy song that came out.
Yeah.
And even when my mom died, and that song had kind of peaked, but everybody started sending everybody in my family the happy song. And that was just who she was. And even at her funeral, one of her favorite songs was "You Are My Sunshine," and so we sang that at the tail end, and we had everybody participate in that, because she would have liked that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So we
How cool.
We really tried to tie in and let people see those joyful moments of her, and remember the good things, because so many times people they go down the rabbit hole, and they take things so seriously of, well, she's not who she was. Well, hey, none of us are, none of us are. Time has changed us all. Our bodies change, our attitudes change, our priorities change, our relationships change. That's just called life. And yet we try to hold somebody in time who has dementia, so we're more comfortable with, that the change isn't happening, and which really isn't fair when you look at it in that light, that everything else in the world is changing, and it's almost unconscious where we try to hold them in place. And when we can just accept them where they are, everybody lightens up, and everybody becomes joyful, because and I talk with a lot of care partners on this, and I'm sure you see this as well, but when a person with dementia is joyful, the people around them typically are too. They're not as worried. They're more comfortable. Yeah. So being able to leverage music is a huge, huge gift. So I'm going to get back to my original question, because I took us on a beaten path of what could, how can listeners really incorporate music into their lives to help their loved ones?
Okay. Well, I think just to extend what you've been saying, another important tip is for caregivers to bring in music that they enjoy too, music experiences they enjoy, and share those with their loved ones. Sometimes care partners, elder care professionals want to find the perfect CD or the perfect playlist or the perfect music to play and fix XYZ problem for the person that they're caring for. So their hearts are coming from the right place, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't really work, because it's about the relationship, and a relationship is always a two-way street. Mm-hmm. So care partners should be thinking about the music that's important to them and the musical experiences that they enjoy, because that's probably going to be a place of connection for them with their loved one or the person that they're caring for as well. So sometimes that's something that I help facilitate in the music therapy groups that I do. A lot of times in memory care, where I live, a lot of the residents are older white people, and a lot of the care partners are from minority groups, and definitely a few decades younger. So there's a difference in culture between those two groups. But we can share music across that. And so we'll bring in music, not necessarily that's only Betty's favorite song or only Bob's favorite song, but Betty's favorite song, Bob's favorite song, and also happy or music that's popular right now, and music that comes from Latin America, or music that comes from West Africa, and then we could bring that in as well. That I'm kind of going off the rails too, but so bringing in music that is shared, just really emphasizing the relationship and sharing music together rather than putting it on and walking away, I think is another big tip.
Yeah, just being able to enjoy it together. And I think sometimes people think that it has to be this big interactive thing, but how many times do you just drive in the car and have music on and it touches your soul, or you're sitting next to somebody, or maybe you have it on even during dinner, if they've gone further in the disease where maybe they can't talk as much. It just relaxes, I think, everybody, because we're so used to filling air or feeling like we have to fill air. And that really isn't engagement, that's just nervous energy, really. And people with dementia mimic our nervous energy as well. So if we can help ourselves stay calm and engaged, it's going to help them interact with us.
That gets me to tip number 3, which is replace the TV with music. I think is probably good for most of us, most of the time. Just from an environmental perspective, if you've got Jerry Springer or Fox News or CNN on TV, that's going to lend to a different kind of environment or climate than if you have somebody's favorite music playing. So I think sometimes care partners park somebody in front of the TV because this is, I don't know what to do with them right now, so we'll turn on the TV. And instead, I think a step up from that would be turning on some of their favorite music, turning on their iPod, their favorite playlist, or putting on a CD. That can be a really simple way to change the energy a little bit in that room and to show somebody that you care about them without having to have the TV on, which as a sound stimulus can be very irritating and very up and down, and same thing visually, it can be agitating. So that's another tip, is to replace the TV with music more often.
Yeah, and I know with my mom, I mean, she would think what was going on in the TV was real, and
Mm-hmm.
and that was very frightening to her a lot of times. And so I think we have to be really, really conscious of that. And if you can bring back those old memories of comfort, through music, because music is so emotional for all of us. It's just
Mm-hmm.
there's something in there that just gets us going and ties us back in time to so many great memories. And, the memory is, typically one of the big things that's lost when dementia hits. And so if we can help stimulate that, and that's pretty powerful. Can you talk a little bit about, and if you can't, that's okay, but how the brain works? Because they always say music is kind of one of the last things to go.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, we have this technology now called fMRI, which functional magnetic resonance imagery, I think is what it's called. And so what that technology does is it can take pictures of the brain activity while somebody is listening to music.
Mm-hmm.
It's very expensive, but there's a lot of interest in music neuroscience now. And so there's a lot of research coming out. I've been in the field for 12, 13 years, and we've learned so much in the last decade. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So the limitation of that technology is that pretty much we can only take pictures of the brain while people are sitting still inside that MRI machine. So we don't know yet a whole lot about what's happening in the brain when people are making music, like playing in an orchestra or singing, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that caveat. But what we can see is that the lower parts of the brain, which are the parts of the brain that develop first and have the more basic human functions, like the brainstem is where you have breathing and temperature maintenance and really basic functioning like that, keeping your heart beating. The cerebellum is where you have balance and motor coordination. A lot of that happens there. And then the middle part of the brain is where the limbic system is. That's where you have like the amygdala and the thalamus and the hypothalamus. And sometimes you hear people refer to that as the monkey brain or the lizard brain.
Mm-hmm.
That's the level of brain functioning that lots of animals have, right? Well, humans are unique in that we have this next level up, which is the cerebral cortex. That's the gray matter on top. And in most forms of dementia, that is the part that decays first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of our higher cognitive functioning is, like executive functioning, making decisions, making plans, managing your finances, those kinds of things that become difficult early on in the disease process. That all happens in the frontal cortex, the very front part of your brain. Now, we know that emotions, the fight or flight response, a lot of that is happening in the limbic system, which is that middle part of the brain, the monkey brain that I mentioned. So then the third part of that is that music lights up all kinds of areas of the brain. So the cerebral cortex is very active when you're doing music because you're interpreting rhythm and harmony and lyrics and melody and blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot of higher level functioning that happens. But the emotional part of it also, the limbic system is active, that middle part of the brain. And the cerebellum is even active. So one study actually shows that even when you're sitting still, your brain is registering movement when you're listening to music, which is kind of crazy. So all that's the reason why music lasts the longest, because the cerebral cortex is the part of your brain that is decaying and becoming less and less functional, and that kind of works its way down until your body completely shuts itself down, right?
Mm-hmm.
But music is still activating those parts of the brain that remain all the way until the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool. It's pretty
Really?
neat that we know that now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Well, I have just found this to be just a fascinating conversation here. Are there any other tips that you have for family?
I think my main tip is don't be afraid of music. Don't be afraid of bringing it into your relationship, and make it about the relationship more than making it another tool in your toolbox. Make it part of your caregiving relationship, and you'll find the joy and the playfulness that comes with sharing music together.
Oh, I like that. I like that because I'm all about getting back to the relationship. And even though we use the term person-centered, which is supposed to be all about the relationship, I think for most people out there, person-centered is still very task-oriented. It's about checking off those things on our to-do list. And so I love that point because I think we have to get people to understand, what both sides want, and the only way you get back to a new norm that's comfortable for you is to put the relationship first and really focus on that. One of the tools that it might be helpful for you when you work with families I have is called Your Memory Chip, and I devised it just because of that whole relationship I felt like was slipping. And I, instead of focusing on my to-do list, which I still had to attend to, but I could prioritize it different, and I instead focused on 3 simple things. Was she safe? Was she happy? And was she pain-free? And when I focused on those 3 things, I looked at my tasks different, and I was able to enjoy my mom. I was able to sing in my goofy voice and not worry about it and just relax or sit and hold hands with her as we listened to music together in silence, or did, we used to physically dance when she was mobile, and then we'd dance when she was in a wheelchair, and then we started doing an arm dance, and it got down to a pinky dance, but it was just that touch and that engagement of our relationship that told each other we were both still there.
It sounds to me like you did everything right.
Well, not all the time, but you
as
try.
far as music goes.
Yeah, you
did good.
Yeah, you try, and it is one of the things too. Maybe you've got some advice on this because I know I struggled even with my brothers to get them. It's just like, can you just push the damn button on the CD player for her when you're there? Can you just do that? And I really had a hard time getting them to participate, and I just in seeing the importance of it, and it was I used to get really frustrated, and then I finally learned that the best I could do was just to lead by example and to let them make their own choices. And
I can say that music takes us to a very emotional place, and sometimes people they have to be in denial. They're in such a state of denial that, or turning on the music and really contacting somebody at that very personal level is going to cause them pain. And we shy away from pain, and from grief. And so I've working with people who are grieving, music sometimes is just too much. Like any music is just too much because it is emotional. And so if you're in that anticipatory grieving process for this person who is so different, not gone yet, but they're so different, I think that's a hard thing for some people to get over. So if that's the case for somebody listening to this, I would say baby steps, one thing at a time. And it is probably going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. That is dementia. That Alzheimer's is all about making caregivers uncomfortable. There's a lot of discomfort, but it's something that can be such a source of joy that it's worth getting through the discomfort.
Yeah, it really is worth taking a chance. That's for sure. Well, this has just been such a pleasure to have you on the show, Rachelle. You want to give people your contact information once again?
Sure. My website is soundscapingsource.com, and there's a contact form there. I'm willing to talk to folks about what they need for their families and for their elder care companies as well.
Okay, so soundscapingsource.com. And then also, if they're looking for a music therapist, they can go to musictherapy.org. musictherapy.org if you're looking for somebody in your area. But if you're in the Kansas City area, please reach out to Rachelle. She would love to talk to you. And again, thank you so much for being with us and spending time with us today. It's been a fun conversation.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. For those of you that are new to Alive and Social, I just want to point out a show that you might want to check out. It's a short episode. It's called What's for Dinner Tonight? And Rachel Perrin, who is the culinary director for Kowalski's Markets, along with her sidekick Adam Lee, are joined by foodtastic friends and colleagues to chat about all the seasonal flavors and foods and trending topics when it comes to nutrition. And, given the holidays are upon us, I can't believe Thanksgiving's in a couple of weeks. And, we've got Christmas and New Year's. Let the food roll in. You can get some great recipes and ideas for some easy meals with them. And you can also find their full menu list at Kowalskis.com. That's KOWALSKIS. As far as our last radio shows, I'm just going to highlight those in case you haven't had a chance to listen. We had Dave Wiedrich on. He is with Calendar Cards, which is a memory system to help people be as independent for as long as possible, and that is for early stage people. And then he also has developed a memory cafe directory, which is so easy to use, and there's like over 200 memory cafes in the U.S. now. We also had a show featuring Abe's Garden, which was titled A Family Touched by Dementia Honors Their Father and Community. And they are down in Tennessee, and they just have a fabulous community for people with memory loss, and the research that they're doing, it's second to none. And you can, listen to any of our shows. Just, look through the archives. They're all there. Our last dementia chats, we talked about dementia in diagnosis and doctors' roles and, the pros and the cons of that process. And our panelists who are living with dementia had some great advice on how to make that process better for the families. And our next session that I'll be posting, I'm hoping by the end of the week, will be on pets and dementia, which they had some fabulous insights, because we all think pets are the best thing since sliced bread, but not always with dementia. And they really had some wonderful, wonderful insights to share. For the blog, we've got November 10th. There was a podcast or a post called Fragile Storm, and it's a powerful short film about dementia. And on November 6th, we did a post about 9-year-old Haley Richmond, who we are so proud of, who's with the Hasbro Community Action Heroes. And for being 9 years old, she is really changing a lot in terms of dementia care. In the meantime, have a great week. And again, remember our 3 simple tips on our memory chip when you're dealing with someone with dementia. Are they safe? Are they happy? Are they pain-free? Take care. Thank you.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sylvester here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now, this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.